Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at percentiles and basically like what they are, where they're used in daily life, and look at a method to calculate it in Python. So here we go.
Okay, so today we're going to be looking at percentiles. So a percentile is like basically in statistics, a percentile indicates a specific value below which a given percentage of your data falls. So for example, if a score is in the 85th percentile, it means that 85% of all the scores are lower than that value. So here the code we're referring to is from W3 schools, where these ages are basically like the ages of, the ages of every person living on a specific street. So to find the 75th percentile, meaning the age after which, we'll just get the result. So to find the 75th percentile, we basically put in ages and then 75, and we get the result 43. So this basically means that the 75th percentile, or everybody living on that street, 75% of everybody living on that street is either 43 years old or younger. Now let's say we take 80. So then 80% of everybody living on the street is either 48 years old or younger. And if we say 8, then we have 5.6. So everybody living on that street is either 5.6 years old or younger. Or you can round it up to 6 perhaps, but it's basically 5.6 years old or younger. So this is like basically like the NumPy module, which has a method for calculating the percentile. So if you hover it over, you can see the documentation. So, but basically it's like compute the qwidth percentile of the data along a specified axis. And then, okay, I lost it there. But it's basically like you put in the list first and how much percentile you want to calculate. And then returns the qwidth percentiles of the array elements. So yeah, it basically like the method, the NumPy method for calculating the percentile. And a few real life examples of where this can be used is basically like if we, like a percentile is basically like you use it to, or like it basically indicates like the percentage of data points in a specific group that fall below a given value. So then in real life, it can be used to determine where something like stands relative to something else. So for example, if a child is in the 75th percentile for weight, it means they weigh more than 75% of children their age. Then it's also used in many places in like daily life. So for example, in healthcare and pediatrics. So doctors then use like row charts to measure the child's like measurements like the height, the weight, head circumference, and so on. So for example, if a toddler's height is in the 60th percentile, it means the child is taller than 60% of the children the same age and gender. Then percentiles can also be used for like standardized testing and academics. So you can basically like see how much they scored. Like if a student scores 90 percentile on some exam, then that means their score is 90% better than all the students who took that test or the exam. And the same way it's like it can be used in human resources and compensation. So like you can basically like analyze salary data and make sure that like compensation remains competitive against like the market. So basically like matching the 75th percent of similar roles and so on. So it's useful in quite a lot of different areas. And it's basically like you're comparing or you're figuring out where a specific number stands in comparison to all the other numbers that it's surrounded with.